So yesterday we had just talked about the how Master Shung Se spoke about the Pure Land and the differences with our common world. Okay, so it's called the Land of Great Bliss because it's free from the three kinds of dukkha. We talked about that yesterday. And the happiness there in the Pure Land is not like the sense pleasure happiness we have in this world. It's Dharma happiness. So it's that kind of happiness and joy and sense of fulfillment that comes through transforming our mind, not through arranging everything to get what we want. Okay? So it's a totally different kind of happiness. And if we're born there, then we're never again born in unfortunate realms, like the lower realms, or in places where where meeting the Buddha is impossible, or in the human or Deva realms. Yeah, because once you're born in the Pure Land, then you attain enlightenment in that birth, even though that birth may be a very, very long one. Okay? But we continue to progress, so we never get reborn in the desire realm, which is a good relief because desire realm, we're totally preoccupied with sense objects. And so people say that all of this is due to Amitabha's commitment and his merit. So they put it more on Amitabha, and then we just have to do a little bit like have faith. Yeah? But actually, when we understand things, it's not just Amitabha, it's us. It's a 50-50 thing because we have the Buddha's enlightening activities, and then we have our own receptivity. And so we have to make our own mind receptive by purification, accumulation of merit, learning the Dharma, and so forth. So the Buddha of Sukhavati is called Amitayas, which is infinite life, because the lifespan there lasts infinitely, or should we say it's immeasurable, because we never die an ordinary death once we're born in Amitabha's Pure Land. Yeah, because you're definite to attain enlightenment, even though it may be a while away. Okay, and that same Buddha is called Amitabha, which is infinite light, because he continually emits infinite light rays throughout the world, and displays the activities of all the Buddhas in all the realms. Of course, it's this whole thing of, the sun is shining everywhere, but are our eyes opened? Is the bowl upturned so the sun can go in? So Amitabha's light is anywhere, but is our mind receptive or not? Okay, and so that's why it's so important to guard our mind from getting stuck. Yeah, because sometimes we get really stuck. We're very angry, we're very upset, something's happened, and our mind is totally preoccupied with that. And when that happens, then our mind becomes like this. We all know that from our own experience. So if you die with the mind like tight like that, then is the mind going to be receptive? Yeah. So if we don't want to die with a mind that's like that, we should make sure that during our life, when our mind gets very tight, very narrow, very preoccupied with one thing only, and it's not a Dharma thing, if you're preoccupied with investigating the nature of reality, that's okay, But that's not usually what we're preoccupied with. It's about worrying about this or upset about that. So, if we don't want to die with that kind of restricted mind, then it's really to our own benefit when our mind gets like that, to work to release it and not to feed the anxiety that we feel. Okay, so there's countless bodhisattva disciples in the Pure Land, and they will become Buddhas after that one life. There's also countless Sravaka disciples, so the hearers who live there, but they're all arhats, okay? Because the hearers and solitary realizers who are Aryas, or even before they've become Aryas, are who are deeply committed to their own path. They don't transfer from one path to the other. So they complete that, become arhats, and then if arhats have receptive minds, like when the Buddhas wake them up from their meditation on emptiness that's been going on for eons, and say, hey, you have to take into consideration other beings' samsara and work for their benefit. In that condition, then those arhats can be born in the Pure Land, and then they attain full awakening there. Okay, so we're surrounded, if we were born there, we're surrounded by holy beings, and everybody who is interested in the Mahayana path, the Bodhisattva vehicle. Okay, like I mentioned before, I think many of those arhats, they're born in the lotuses that are very slow to open, okay, because of the lack of bodhicitta. So seeing all the benefit of being born in the Pure Land, then the Buddha encouraged everybody who hears of it to generate the aspiration to be born there. Why? First, so that they can meet Amitabha and the other great practitioners, like Nagarjuna. Second, so that they will enjoy the Mahayana Dharma that is taught there. And third, so that through their unshakable resolve and practice, they will advance on the path moment by moment. So that makes it very clear that if you're not interested in those three things, then you're probably not going to generate the aspiration to be born there. And without the aspiration to be born there, you're not going to be born there. Okay, so even if you recite Namo Amitabha however many times, without really that aspiration, which comes from, wanting to meet Amitabha and the great practitioners. So what's going to cause that aspiration to want to meet Amitabha and the great practitioners? Yeah, it's going to require purification, accumulation of merit. It's going to require some knowledge of the Dharma, particularly of the Dharma, like I want to be born where I can meet Nagarjuna because I've studied his texts in this lifetime. Yeah, but if you haven't studied his texts, you don't know who he is, or even you study them and they don't move your mind, you're just doing it for your PhD thesis or something, then you're not going to have that kind of aspiration. Yeah, so it's not always so easy to generate the aspiration to be born near Amitabha and great practitioners. If we look at our daily life, how much of our daily life do we spend with that kind of aspiration? And how much of our daily life do we spend aspiring, may I have good food, may people praise me, may nobody bother me or insult me today? What are our usual aspirations? And, then we begin to see it's not so easy to have that. Then the second one, to have the aspiration to be reborn there, you need to want to enjoy the Mahayana Dharma. Now, in this life, If you don't know what in the world the Mahayana Dharma is, no chance to aspire to enjoy it. Even if you know what it is, if you have ideas like, well, that's just impossible, working for the benefit of all sentient beings, that's just impossible, that's fanciful thinking, don't even try. Or if you think that's too difficult, yeah, I don't have what it takes to do it and it's too difficult, then you don't have that aspiration. Yeah, so we have to know something about the Mahayana Dharma and the Bodhisattva vehicle and feel this tremendous aspiration, like, oh my goodness, like, wow, look at the potential of my mind and look what I can do and look at the benefit I can give to all sentient beings if I'm able to do this. Okay, so we have to have that in us. Remember when we were studying in Precious Garland in the last chapter, the 10 Bodhisattva grounds? Yeah, did you feel inspired hearing those? Yeah, even they're very far away, it's just like, wow, imagine being able to have those qualities and to know that kind of thing. Wow, I want to do that, even it's far away, you know? So that's the kind of thing that has to happen in our mind and be very, very deep in our mind, okay? Not just, oh, the 10 grounds, oh yeah, they say all this stuff, it sounds out of this world, that's just fanciful thinking, forget it, you know? Yeah, I mean, and I say this because that's the attitude I had when I first heard about the 10 grounds. Yeah, so it's not so easy, to really have that kind of faith. And then, and it has to be, faith based on knowledge, and not just knowledge of what the bodhisattvas do, but some kind of feeling like, okay, if I create the causes, I can do that, and I'm capable of creating the causes. Yeah, so there has to be some self-confidence in there too. Yeah. And then the third one is, through their own immeasurable commitments and practice, wanting to advance on the path moment by moment and seek the highest awakening. So again, how often is that thought in our mind? We generate it every morning when we wake up, right? Yeah, as much as possible today, I'm not going to harm anybody. As much as possible, I'm going to benefit others. As much as possible, I'm going to hold the bodhicitta dear in my heart. Yeah, we think that every morning when we first get up. And then,
Tea time.
yeah, tea time. Or here, we do our offering service prayer, and we talk about how differences, differences, ideas, and ways of doing things may arise. These are natural and are not sort of exchange. Don't let our minds make it, we don't need to make them into conflicts. We recite that every day. Are we paying attention to it when we recite it? Are we paying attention to it one moment later when somebody right after the meeting comes to talk to us about something that needs to be done? Okay, so we see that, sometimes we may read these things and it sounds not difficult, but when we check our mind, we see what it entails, and then we should, aspire to really create those causes, to have these three kinds of, qualities that lead to the aspiration to being born there. Okay, so I'm really emphasizing this because in some places where I've traveled, I think in Taiwan and Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, among many practitioners, there's just the thought of, saying a few Namo Amitabha and then going to the Pure Land And it really takes more than that. Yeah. Because if that's all it took, then the Buddha would have taught that, and he wouldn't have taught 83,999 other teachings. Okay.